Hi there, Sugar Snaps. Welcome back into the studio. It looks a little different here if you've been around for a while. I just did a kind of studio refresh. I was inspired by some of the booth displays that I created for a couple markets that I did recently. So I decided to bring some of my booth display into my studio and now have this new setup, which I'm still tweaking and working on, but I'm really pleased with how it's turning out and wanted to share it with you. Today, if you're new here, welcome in. My name's Brittany. I'm the creator behind this YouTube channel where I make things and share tutorials and teach the fiber arts that I love and know how to do. And I sometimes share projects that I am working on, and today's video is one of those. I am going to be working on a wet felting project. Last night, I was thinking about what video to do here and was like, you know, I want to wet felt a rug. And last night, that idea was super exciting, and I was like, I can do this. And then I got up this morning, I was like, today I'm making a wet felted rug. Oh, today I'm making a wet felted rug. Okay, I need to figure out how to do this. So somehow between last night and this morning, there's a bit of disconnect in the process. So we're going to figure out how to wet felt a floor rug today. I'm probably going to have it be about 24 inches by 36 inches, something like that. So to do this project, we're obviously going to need materials, and I have a bag of wool. This is meant to be stuffing. I'm going to lay it out, and hopefully I did a test on this wool to see that it would felt, and it did pretty well. So hopefully that works. Kettle with hot water, a bin that I can do some wet felting in. I'm probably going to move to my bathtub because I'm going to need to start with a piece that's probably the size of my work table to get started with. And it will shrink down obviously as we start to wet felt it, but it's going to start out large, and that's a lot of messy, sloppy wool to work with. So I may start out in my bathtub and then work towards the table or something. Bubble wrap, lots of towels because this is going to get messy. Apron on, let's get ready to wet felt. Just as a disclaimer, this is not meant to be a tutorial or a how-to on wet felting. You can definitely follow along and learn from my mistakes, but I wouldn't start at the beginning of the video and follow along just in case something goes wrong. I'd hate to lead you astray. Watch till the end of this video. Shameless plug. Also, don't want to mess up your project. Currently, my wool is just white, so it's going to end up being a white piece of felt. I could add in some other fibers or have some dyed fiber that I can add texture or detail to it. Hold that thought. I looked across my studio and saw this piece of chiffon that I've just had hanging on my bulletin board for a while. And it just popped in my head that maybe I can use this on the surface of the rug to create spirals like this, and kind of lay some wool over top of it so that it ends up being embedded in the wool felt. Y'all, this project has me overwhelmed. This is my bin of bits and pieces of fabric, and I don't know what I have in here that could work. Ooh, this could be cool. Strips of this. Maybe I'll try that. Okay, we're gonna try this. So if I cut it into little strips like that other piece of chiffon, it should work pretty well. So I have this piece of chiffon that I'm going to use in the rug, and I have this piece that I'm going to cut into strips, maybe do a pretty thin piece. I'm gonna try tearing this because I think, yeah, I can tear a strip all the way down the length of this. And now I have another strip to work with. Now to set up the work surface. To get the bubble wrap to be wide enough for my rug, I cut 2 strips that were the width of my table, and then I took packing tape and taped the two pieces together, joining them so they were butted up against each other, and taped along that seam, trying to make sure that the bubble wrap was flat in that seam area so that it didn't create a problem in the rug that I make later. And I did that twice. So I had two pieces of two strips of bubble wrap combined with the packing tape, and then had those ready to work with. I think when wet felting, wool tends to shrink down about 30% of whatever it is you have laid out. And it also depends how tight you felt your piece. I am not going to do any measurements or calculations because I'm working with the work surface that I'm on and with the bubble wrap size, and I'm just kind of experimenting with this project anyway. So I don't really have anything specific in mind. So I'm just diving in and going for it. I think now my next step is to actually lay out the fiber. And this fiber is sort of a wool bat, which means that the fibers are going in different directions. They aren't really combed or brushed to lay in the same direction, which might make it challenging to lay this out for wet felting. It might also help the wet felting process because it's already tangled the fibers a little bit for me. So what I'm going to try to do is open up some of this fluff and lay it out so that, generally speaking, the fibers are going in one direction, and then I'll do another layer so that the fibers are going in the opposite direction. I think I have enough layers of wool here now. I've gone over it probably 3 or 4 layers and piled up wool in opposite directions. I tried to make each layer a different direction, but because the fiber is all kind of lumpy, it was a little bit hard to pull it off in the direction that I wanted to exactly, but I generally made that happen. Now I'm going to go through, feel it, and see if there's any thin spots that I can feel at this point. Just put a couple more tufts on here. And now I get to grab my fabric pieces and add the fabric to the top here. And we'll call this the top. This is the side that's going to show under here. This is the bottom. You can kind of pick up gently the whole thing. Just a fun fact for you. I started laying out the fabric strips on the wool surface, and I did spirals because it was something that was easy and I knew I could cover it with the wool to embed it into the wool material. And so I laid out my pieces kind of a little bit randomly, but trying to spread out the different colors of the fabric so that it looked nice design wise, and overlap them a bit to kind of create depth. I think I'm actually going to take this guy out, my original piece, because it doesn't quite match the other pieces. Then I'm really just have the navy and the orange to work with here. I'm taking little bits of fiber and laying them over the fabric to kind of embed the fabric in place. I don't want to totally cover it, but I need enough of the fibers to cover the fabric so that it doesn't just fall off or pull out. I feel like I might be going a little bit too thick here, and it might hide the fabric too much, but I also don't want to put too little so that the fabric just falls off. So I don't know. Oh boy, this looks like a disaster. Ugh. I hope this works. Now everything's embedded or covered mostly. And now it's time to get everything wet and start the felting process. Look at that. I'll be right back. I laid the towels down on my work surface with a layer of bubble wrap and then put the wool felt back onto my table and started getting it wet. But wool is resistant to getting wet, so I was having trouble getting the water to soak through all of the material. So I added more water, continued to press it into the surface, and eventually decided that it wasn't working on my work table and I was getting water all over the floor because I was working on a flat surface, and so I moved to the bathtub. This is definitely not the most ideal place to be filming. I laid the rug in the bathtub, and it took a while to get it to absorb the water, but eventually I did get all the layers to absorb water. I used a glass jar to pour water over the surface, being careful not to disrupt the wool surface or move things around, move the fabric around too much, and got it wet, soaked the water through, I pressed it in, and then moved it to my work surface in the studio. In the studio, I continued to add friction using the bubble wrap and rotated between hot and cold water. I rolled it up like this in a tube and then massaged the outside of the bubble wrap tube to continue to add friction and get the different sides of the rug to felt. So I've just kind of been rolling this back and forth in the bubble wrap, trying to add some friction, and every once in a while adding soap and water here. And it's starting to form a bit of felt. I'm a little concerned some of the wool pieces have lifted up and aren't necessarily felting very well or flat. But I think if I just keep working at them, I should be able to get it to lay flat. Oh boy, exhausting work. I am going to take a lunch break and rest my arms, which are getting tired from throwing the rug around in the bathtub. I'm going between hot and cold water to try to shock the fibers into felting. So using friction and then the shock of hot to cold water helps the fibers to tangle and cause the felting effect. So that's what I'm aiming for, and it's going pretty well. I think I need a few more minutes, just kind of giving it some more beating. And then I'll probably take it to the studio, up to the studio again, and use the bubble wrap a few more times to kind of roll it and add some more felting. For now, lunch break. Oh boy, I'm about ready for this thing to be done. I'm going to get the bubble wrap soapy and then lay the mat back on the bubble wrap and do some more turns with the bubble wrap, because moving it around in the bathtub got it kind of hairy or frizzy, I guess. It's fairly well felted. Now my goal is to get it to lay flat and maybe get the edges a little more felted. And the fabric strips are not as embedded as I thought they were going to be. I was afraid that they wouldn't show up very well, but they actually show up quite a lot, and which is great. But there's some that aren't really embedded at all like here. And I think what I've decided to do to solve that is I'll needle felt some fiber over top of those areas, because wet felting, I'm not sure I can get the felt to, or new fiber to actually attach to the felt now that I've done the felting process. So needle felting, I can spot specific places, put the fiber in with the needle, and it'll hold the fabric down. And so I can just do a couple of places where the fabric is sticking up more so than others. Okay, I think I'm gonna call that quits on the felting process. Allow this to dry and then finish off the edges, whatever I wanna cut down at that point. And then I will show you the finished product. I put the rug through a dryer cycle and then trimmed down the edges to kind of clean things up a bit. And here is the finished piece. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. It definitely could improve my felting abilities. It's a little wobbly and has some bumps and lumps in it, but I think with wear and laying it out flat, those will stretch themselves out. The fabric spirals look really cool embedded in the material, so I'm pleased with how that worked out. Some of the bits are kind of sticking up. For a rug, I think I will work a blanket stitch around the outer edge to finish it off and just make sure that the edge looks nice and neat and clean. But other than that, it's ready to go, and for a one-day make, this turned out pretty well. Thanks so much for following along this project and watching this video. Like and subscribe if you want to see more of my videos. I post about once a week a new tutorial or project I'm working on, or other fiber arts related video. I'm hoping to do more one-day make style videos in the future, so if you like this format, like this video, subscribe, and leave a comment below. I really appreciate you being here and supporting my work, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!